Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
This is Kerry Lutz on the financialsurvivalnetwork.com, and it's time for another Triple Lutz Report. This is episode 337. The date is February 19th. You remember, we've been hot on this story of Marcella Sims, that wonderful principal of PS 106 in Far Rockaway, Queens. The woman is just an abomination, no-show principal, and this is an average public school. It's an extremely poor section of Queens in New York City, and the school's teachers, staff have been complaining about the woman almost from the day she arrived. She's a racist. She drove out the white teachers almost immediately. She's a no-show, just a horrible person. And the Department of Education finally, after about a month and a half since the Post exposed this woman, said that they're going to fire her. And the Post called it the School of No. They said they're quickly responding to this probe that found that she blatantly lied about her attendance at Far Rockaway's PS 106, all the while collecting a full paycheck for the no-show work. Sources said Sills was immediately reassigned pending charges and a hearing to seek her permanent dismissal from the city's public education system. This is a hat tip to Susan Edelman and Jean McIntosh. They've been on this story almost from the beginning. I spoke with Susan Edelman. She's really done yeoman's work here in helping get this woman axed, but she should have been suspended immediately. The brass at the Department of Education were still covering for her. They've known about her all this time, so this is disgusting. But the swift DOE action came as Special Commissioner of Investigation Richard Condon, who ignored this situation for 8 years, issued a 13-page report. Why it required 13 pages, I don't know, recommending that Sills get the axe and that she and assistant principal, who has since resigned, never be allowed to work for the education department again. Well, I think if they allow the woman to be a janitor and use some of her fur coats to mop the floors, maybe then, but closely monitored. And Condon's investigation, as you know, was brought about by the Post's January 12th report. So it revealed that the fur coat wearing BMW driving school boss was always hours late for work if she showed up, often played hooky blue taxpayer dough to redecorate her office, and ordered catered meals. How many other Marcella Sills are out there is what I'd like to know. Because if the lady had just taken the trouble to show up and just done nothing, she'd still be there. And you know that her students lacked basic supplies and services, including books. They had no gym class, no art. They watched movies every day and lacked special ed teachers. Condon said he also turned over his findings to the Queens DA for possible criminal prosecution. We'll see if that one happens. DOE spokesman Devon Piglia called Condon's findings disturbing and said, "We plan on executing the special Commissioner of Investigation's recommendations." And Condon's investigators found Sills lied about her hours on the job, didn't keep time cards, and then tried to get her underlings to cover her tracks. And Marcella Sills and I'm quoting, was frequently late or absent from work, but received her full salary without any time being deducted, the report states. And the probe found that Sills routinely showed up for work between 9 a.m. and noon, despite a principal being expected between 7 and 7:30 a.m., calling a custodian from her cell phone to alert him of her impending arrival so he could open a gate for her private parking spot. And investigators checked Sills's cell phone records for a year and found she only called the custodian before 9 a.m. after the Post outed her. And Sills said that she arrived each day between 7 a.m. and 7:30 a.m. and pretty much lived at her school, so the report states. And the report also found that former assistant principal Tanya West didn't keep records and supplied recently created time cards when asked to produce documentation of her time in attendance. And for some reason, West had already announced plans to resign before the Post report, and the custodian who acted as her personal concierge told Condon's office that Sills came late 3 weeks out of 4, and neither Sills nor West could produce time cards that showed their hours worked, vacation days, and absences, the report noted. And an office worker said Sills and West instructed her not to do time cards for them, and she didn't from September 2012 through December 2013. And, basically, look, that once the Post article came out, everything hit the fan, but there was enough evidence in the Post articles that the woman should have been suspended. And nonetheless, the Department of Education still covered for her. And the investigation now needs to shift to why the Department of Education knew about all this, why Condon knew about it. He knew about it, we know, since 2007, but nobody did anything. Bloomberg's office got letters about it. The current chancellor of schools, Farina, she got letters about it. The superintendent for this area of schools also got letters about it. None of them did anything. They all did nothing, and the kids suffered, and nobody seems to care about it. So we know that Sills is a good-for-nothing piece of garbage. She more than proved that throughout this whole thing. Okay? She is what she is. But these other people who say that they care so much for the children, everything they do is for the children. They did nothing here. They turned their backs on these kids, and they allowed this situation to go on for years. And now, all of a sudden, they're like the French inspector in Casablanca. There's gambling going on here. I am shocked. And the other thing that needs to be investigated is these school report cards. Because according to the report card that I looked at on the New York City Department of Education website, there's nothing in the scholastic testing of these children that makes this school stand out as anything worse than any other school of its type in New York City, which means that these ratings of schools are totally jacked up, and they don't accurately reflect the kids' true academic achievement or lack of achievement, which is clear here, complete lack of achievement. So I want you to think about that, because nothing is going to change in the New York City public schools. It's just like that newsletter that I wrote several weeks ago. The fact is, nothing is going to change as long as New York City runs these schools. And the fact is, New York's insane mayor, this de Blasio character, who is mainly concerned about pre-K so we can have more pre-K illiteracy. He just wants pre-K for the sake of pre-K. what is the point of pre-K when they're just going to go to schools that teach them absolutely nothing? What's the point? So nothing's going to change. He just wants to spend more taxpayer dollars, and then he wants to drive the charter schools out of existence. And there's one woman, Eva Moskowitz, who's fighting him tooth and nail. He wants to charge the charter schools rent. And the fact is, the charter schools, by all accounts that I've been able to figure out, are producing a superior work product with the same type of students as the regular schools. So all Comrade de Blasio is doing is paying off the unions for his election. He couldn't care less about the kids. And that's the way it is. Up next, I want to share an email that I got from a listener like you. I don't want to use his real name. He asked me to keep it in confidence, but it's something that you need to think about. On the Financial Survival Network, Triple Lutz report number 337. And we're back. So this is part of what our newsletter is going out this week. Natural disasters, man-made disasters, and hybrid disasters. And here's something I guarantee you didn't know. So this email I got from a very credible listener, and here it is. Kerry, my awake brother-in-law runs a power plant in the metro New York area. I just had a conversation with him. He said that this plant almost ran out of fuel last week. They stopped using natural gas because it's in high demand and short supply due to the extremely cold weather. As a result, they are burning 400 gallons per minute of crude oil that is the equivalent of tar, where it has to be heated up to 240 degrees in order for it to flow. This is the worst kind of fuel to burn because it's very dirty and gums up the works. This is literally scraping the bottom of the barrel, and they are running out quickly. Barges are coming from Europe, but they will be late due to the stormy seas. Wonder why you have power outages up there? Is it really iced up lines breaking or plants shutting down their feeds in order to conserve fuel? He had other power facilities calling him, asking him how much fuel they have to sell, particularly his plant is not the only one running out of fuel of any sort. Please share with any person who writes about this stuff. I quote a very credible source from the inside, signed Jim. I personally know Jim, and he's not putting us on. And Dr. Frax takes a little bit of, questions whether a power plant, how fast it can change over types of fuel. But the older power plants in New York City, many of them used to be oil powered. They switched over to natural gas power, and they do have the ability to switch back relatively quickly from natural gas to oil. And if there's a shortage of number 2 diesel or fuel oil, they probably could burn alternative fuels. I trust Jim enough to believe that this is probably credible. So let's look at this, though. Clearly, there's not enough natural gas pipeline capacity to meet peak demand here. And, understand that this winter is in the Northeast extremely rare, and the temperatures have been way, way below normal. And with the snow, once upon a time, there were huge tanks that held billions of BTUs that were on hand for cold spells just like these. They've closed these tanks down. I think there's underground tanks that provide a little bit of a buffer in the system, but pretty much they're running full tilt off of these pipelines. And since power plants are able to switch back to oil, shouldn't be a problem, except when there's an oil supply disruption, such as the one that Jim's email alludes to, due to rough seas brought on by bad weather. So what's a central planner to do? Well, it's simple. If New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo, the tolerant one, were to allow fracking for natural gas, there would have never been a gas shortage in the first place. However, New York State is being held hostage to the radical environmental lobby. Thus, its electrical supply is literally resting on a shoestring of crude oil, and the irony is that air quality is suffering greatly as a result. Next to burning coal, burning crude oil is the worst possible scenario. And with cheap, abundant, fracked natural gas, New York State could build power plants close to the source, create tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of new jobs. They wouldn't have to worry about the ill effects of casino gambling on poor, hapless addicts, along with such other badly thought out economic development scams that never seem to deliver their promised benefits, like green energy and industrial development zones and things like that. But right now, the potential calamity of a protracted brownout, blackout in the middle of a potentially life-threatening cold snap is being hidden from the public and from you. And this is why we're having the Liberty Mastermind Symposium this week in Las Vegas. And the 15 speakers on hand will help you figure out how to thrive in an environment where your government has no interest in your survival, let alone your success. So I just wanted you to hear that. Hope you have a great day. If you can make it to Vegas, love to see you there. The fun begins this Friday, and it's going to be a great time. Go to libertymastermind.us. We'll see you in Vegas. It's been another Triple Lutz Report. Kerry Lutz, signing out. FSN, it's about what's next. Hi, it's Kerry Lutz. I recently decided to move my retirement account into physical precious metals to hedge against the coming times. If you want to move an existing retirement account into physical precious metals that you can hold in your hand, tax-free, there's no company that can do it more quickly and efficiently than Regal Assets. It took them just 24 hours to open my new IRA account, and all I had to do was fill out one simple form. The best part is that Regal Assets does all the work for you. They cover the setup and administrative costs for 2013. If you're interested in making the same move I did, call 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620. That's 855-678-6620, or visit them at regalassets.com. You'll be glad you did, and tell them Kerry sent you.
The Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.